40th, the big 40. Big 40.
And a retro
episode.
40, since we're going back in
retro
time.
40. We're going back. Yes, we're going back to school. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Are you sharing it? Is that what you're doing?
Share to group table.
See, I have my, you have killed my father. I have my rapier. I am Inigo Montoya. You stole my coffee. Prepare to get brimleyed.
You know what? I'm gonna do a goddamn watch party. Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Who doesn't love a watch party?
Okay, watch party.
So we were discussing this earlier because this is 6 levels of retarded. Now, you know who Merrill Lynch is, right? You know who Merrill Lynch is, the investment company?
Yeah.
Well, I have recently, and actually she had a chance to watch me, opened a Merrill Edge account because I hadn't done that. I have my Motif, I have my Robinhood, but I decided I already have a BOA account. I want to integrate that and create the Merrill Edge. So I created the Merrill Edge. First thing they do is they send you, I kid you not, a debit card
for your
investment account. I'm trying to figure out how you're supposed to get money out of your stock account. Does it actually sell your stocks and give you cash? If so, that is the most retarded thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's got to be the worst
Literally.
thing ever. Hey, I got a watch party going in a billion different places, so say hi to everybody.
What's up? Happy 40th episode. We are talking about world building.
World building. In case any of you guys haven't said hi to us
world
before,
building.
yeah, we're going to talk about books and writing and stuff like that.
Anybody else checked out the new cool Facebook? They have that new beta thing they launched where you get a whole new screen. That's really cool. I checked it out.
I think I have to push a button, and I don't think.
I'm part of the Fache Book Developers Network, so maybe it's just that.
You're special.
Maybe you're special.
We know you're special, though. It's just a matter of where the special starts and ends.
I ride the little bus, so I'm very special. It's okay.
Right. Are we licking doorknobs or humping them?
Well, it depends on the day and how I'm feeling. You know, sometimes I drool on them, and sometimes I lick them. You know, and sometimes I might hump the seat in the back of the bus. You never know.
He's a kid that had the Paisley mitt.
That's right. I've got the styrofoam helmet I wear. Yeah.
I just looked and I have
walls. And, yeah.
Can I sign it? Can I sign your helmet?
His head's misshapen. He has to wear the helmet. It's not because it sits there and goes duh against the wall all day.
Here's a circle. You follow that circle. Follow the circle, right? Mm-hmm. Follow the circle. Don't stop until we tell you to.
Yeah, right.
All right. We've done this before, though. Tell everybody what the deal is. This was 3 or 4. You remember?
This was episode 4. Now that we have come a little ways, we have Glacia now who likes to redo some of these because she wasn't around for the first one and she gets pouty. So we have brought back world building. And since I am doing the Fallen and Black Queen and I have been doing a hell of a lot of world building, what a good topic. So yes, we have decided that she's working on the one book which has some world building in it. So more character building, but world building. So I thought, what a good topic to cover.
It is a good topic.
It's a fantastic.
And for those of you who are wondering what that is in case you can see it over here on my screen, I have the background screen for The Fallen on one of my computers.
Cool.
And on everything pretty much has, everything pretty much has the because that's how I motivate myself by, doing that.
It's better than
all of my screens.
Self-flagellation.
Well, you never know. Maybe one day. David Pitts is watching. Davo's watching. And Rachel's watching.
Yep, there's a few people on here. All right. Let's do the lighting.
Let's do world building. All right, world building. Well, everybody who's ever written a story has done some level of world building. Some of our world building is small. Sometimes we take existing worlds, existing places, and all we do is expound upon them. Adding very little imagination and more about reality. Now, part of why that's good is somebody reading the book who's been to Boston has walked down Newbury Street. So in describing Newbury Street, you are now creating a connection for that person who's reading the book, and they go, wow, I've been there. I can really envision what I'm looking at. It's a nice connection. For those of us who decide to take the world destroy it and rebuild it, it's a whole nother level. You have so many things to cover. Orson Scott Card used to create maps. That's what he did to create his world. Before he sat down for a story, he would sit down and draw a map. And this is actually very handy, especially when you're dealing with multiple territories, multiple political bodies, trade routes. There are lots of things you have to think about. You can get very detailed in building these worlds depending on your story. Your story might cover a single character, a group of character, an entire territory, or an entire world. And depending on how big it is how involved you get into building that world. Whether it's describing the grass, which is blue and polka dotted, or the trees, which are fuchsia, or the trade routes that trades underpants for a profit, or the monarch with one leg who speaks pig Latin. There's all kinds of stuff you can do.
Okay.
All right. So yes,
Okay.
Okay. So in world building.
Yeah.
How do you guys start building your world? You sit down with a story, you've got the story, now you've got your character who is Bob or Pam or Skippy or whatever. And it's Billy, because we always like using fucking Billy, right? Billy's always going someplace.
Ever since Billy came out and turned left to go down his street, we've used Billy up.
Yep. Well, Billy, against his mom's advice, jumped in the washer and hit the spin cycle, and he has appeared in this new world. So his hair's a little messy and he's kind of wet.
Let her start off, because Ray and I did this a long time ago. Glace didn't get a chance to, so here we go.
I didn't.
So how do you build worlds? How do you start building your world? What do you do?
My experience of actively world building now is like a one and only thing. I mean, because I did create a world for the Clockmaker series, but I just sort of started writing that and then realized somewhere along the way that, oops, I need to worry about things like continuity. and that's when I had to sort of press pause and go and start, doing the whole documentation thing, writing everything down and making sure that everything was solid and together so that, ultimately I think that what I was thinking about this earlier as I was listening to episode 4, I was like, okay, so what's the purpose of actually being diligent and purposeful about creating a world? And ultimately what that is that's more for us than it is for a reader. And
diligently creating the world? Well,
keeping track of what you create.
Hear me out. Yeah. Okay.
That is true. So, keeping track of it's a whole other thing.
That's right. So the reason that we need to be so diligent is so that we can create rules, regulations in which our characters operate. And that includes the physical spaces like you were saying. But for me, it has way less to do with physical spaces and more about what is allowed to occur within the world. Because my protagonist
it's more about the rule set. Got it.
Yeah, my protagonist exactly. My protagonist is psychic, and so she goes to fun places and stuff like that. But it all takes place in Washington, D.C. and in upstate Virginia. And so there's nothing particularly special about the places that they go to. It's just about what she does. And so the concept of the book is a world in and of itself. So not only do we have, there's this spectrum of worlds, right? So you have on one end this entirely fabricated worlds that you see in the most inventive sci-fi and fantasy. And then you have sort of the altered reality worlds. I would say that that's probably what mine is, where you have something that's familiar, but that has different aspects to it. Mine is all just Washington, D.C., but I have my protagonist has an ability that makes the whole world and rules and everything different. And then over here, you have the worlds that, mystery and suspense and thriller and romance writers have to create. There's still rules there,
But it's consistency that the reader needs to be able to rely on what you describe, this little world. They can't see it. You tell them about it, but it has to be repeatable and consistent and not wandering. They need to have these little places that are emotional anchors that they can hang on to while you take them out on the end of their tether. They have to have a place to come back to. If you haven't set that up, then it's like a Twilight Zone episode, and it becomes unrecognizable after a while. That the creating your world or universe.
Yeah. Yes.
That's step one.
Really. Well, yeah, no. I mean, there's more than just the tangible, though. Let's. We were in New Orleans, and I talked about the vibe of the city, the feel, how the city feels when you walk through it, and you got a little bit of that when we went down to the pier and we walked down to the store. The feel of the city itself. Every city has its own vibe, whether it's Boston, Nashville, New York, Atlanta, it doesn't matter. Every place has their own vibe. But some people I've noticed in books don't cover it. They cover the physical, they cover the description, but they miss out on that. They miss the vibe.
Personality of a city.
Yeah, everything's got a personality.
Yeah.
I mean, New Orleans is old with an undertone of gritty, but at the same, it's got like a stately feel, but at the same time, it's almost a little raunchy. It's got a really nice, it's kind of like that old lady in the corner, who's a perv, but is wearing that really nice 3-piece Gucci dress, I mean, that's kind of New Orleans. You're looking at her going, oh, she's a freak, but she's looking like she's going to the Met. That's kind of New Orleans. Yeah, exactly. But every city has its own personality that you can really have fun with. It kind of lends itself to the story.
Our characters go through that place and they are affected by it. Glacia's people live in DC, and there are things that are particular to DC that you don't have to be terribly familiar with Northern Virginia to know, or to have some sort of prescient knowledge of it. It's important for her not to describe DC in the summertime as a nice, cool, airy place. It's a humid, sweltering shithole. And if she doesn't cover that, she loses authenticity. But the physical side of this and how it attaches to the way people live, it is important. It is world building for her. No one stays in DC or New York in the summer unless they absolutely have to. She covers that kind of stuff. It rounds out and lends authenticity to the place where her characters live and where her readers intrude and borrow her thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Yeah, I can see that. But DC, a couple of things to know about DC, and what you get into is nobody actually really lives in DC. Very few people truly live there. A lot of them are transports during the day from Maryland and Virginia to work in DC. DC at night, people come back in to go to places like Georgetown, the Dubliner Bar, places like that to do things. So
but they go back out to Arundel, or they go back out to Greenbelt, or they go to Laurel. They go anywhere but there. It's a shitty city, let's face it.
But it comes out, But DC, those people who do live there love DC. If they live in DC, they are converts. They love the city.
But they're probably in Georgetown, though, aren't they? They got money.
Probably
we don't
in
have.
Georgetown, right? Yeah, they're sitting up in Georgetown, which is a great place to live difference? Now. DuPont Circle,
When the psychic stuff kicks in, you could conceptually use any city or a rural area or lots of different places. Your character doesn't change, but how in your stories does that environment affect her?
The physical environment. She is from upstate Virginia, and though that has its own impact on her, she definitely
Northern Virginia. That's called Northern Virginia.
Yeah. Northern.
Kind of
New York.
Sort of like the Shenandoah area. She fuck you caught me. And I
totally did that on purpose just to screw with you. Go ahead.
So the places that you create to support it, how does that affect her? She doesn't affect DC. It affects her.
Yes.
Right.
There's a lot of attention that is drawn to how she sees the city as being very dirty and kind of claustrophobic.
It is, yeah. It's a good one.
And which is different from like how her brother sees it. Her brother sees it as not quite fast enough. Everything is just a little too sluggish, a little too crowded, and So yeah, attention is not necessarily drawn to the city in and of itself. They do move around the city, and like, you know, the highways are a character at one point in time, you know, like
that's
how
cool though. That's
being
neat.
trapped by the reality of how those highways operate. And
anybody who's read Glacia stuff, very subtle in how she architects these things. It's not me. I am like I'm like in your face going, hey, I got stuff, you want to see it, you know. That's me when I write a story. Hers is like behind you, you kind of see it, it weaves itself in and it comes in later. It's very elegant and very subtle. I'm throwing stuff at the reader. I'm like a 4-year-old, okay? I'm like, ooh, I got this, go, you know, come on, let's play with it.
Well, dude, though, right? Like that's where the whole genre difference comes into play, though. You know, I mean, like I'm doing, you know, para MST basically. You know, there's elements of suspense and thrill and mystery, and so me being a little bit more
subtle, elegant, and subtle. I like that. No, it's a nice read. It's very elegant. It's very subtle.
But
it's very
you write action-packed sci-fi stuff, so it would stand to reason that your worlds would be a whole lot more explosive, shall we say?
A lot of them are worlds that don't exist, and he has to literally create them. Not just the physical, but the rules that go along with it. How you live in one of his stories, one of his worlds, that's not what you have to deal with in the greater District of Columbia.
But wait, hold on though. The thing is that the rules and regulations of my world are outside of the physical world building, right? Because
it's a whole different
because
kind
I have a psychic protagonist, she goes, you know, outside of.
You've given her a hell of a different place to. Yeah, I understand.
Wait. A psycho protagonist female living in DC. I think I dated her.
Nice. Did you marry that one too?
No, I didn't marry that one. That's okay. I didn't marry that one. Shut up. Wow. Oh yeah.
There you go.
I'm getting a headache. Oh yeah.
All right.
No, but I mean, but she's I get it. Yours is an interesting world build because of that.
So we talk about, like, you know, the worlds that are, you know, like as Ray was just saying, that are like, and then, you know, the ones that are a little.
My worlds. Yeah.
There's stuff even in your books, like let's not talk about Shadow War Chronicles, but Earth Reborn, which is the one that he's got coming out soon. There's a lot of shit that goes on that you don't see in the first book, don't see in the second, that you may not ever see. And so, like, this is the question that I have for you guys. I know what it is for me, but this is where we get into how much of the world building that we do is for, you know, the readers, you know, in informational purposes or for entertainment purposes, but how much of it is really just for us that has no.
See, 50-50 at the best.
There's a lot of notes that we have in just for us, or something that'll reveal itself later that we barely see or experience during the first book. You may walk by something in the first book, in the third book you're going to investigate and experience it, but we have a note somewhere. We have it in our mind what we're going to do with that. So there
we have to have been there. We have to have been there. And I would say 50-50, Glacia, because it's not something you can, if you go off of that world, if you go outside of the borders that you've created, not deliberately, if you do this, you're going to get caught. You will screw something up. We go there and do all of this stuff, as you said, for ourselves, because we absolutely cannot afford to not know about the world that we're telling other people.
Yeah,
I mean, have to understand it.
The thing with me in my problem, my whole, not the physical world, but the, you know, the paranormal world, is that, you know, I knew that I was going to be throwing things at my readers later that would make them go, oh, I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know that they could do that. I didn't know that was a thing. But I had to be able to look at stuff and identify things and be able to go, okay, that's a rule, but I'm going to make it look like this for now. So, like, I guess my point is that the world itself, I realized probably halfway through the first book when it really bloomed for me and I got the greater picture that this was not just one story, that this was something that was big, that I was like, hold on a second, I got to push pause and figure out exactly what it is that everybody can do, that she can do, and how, and that way I know that if I'm leading my reader to believe something, that it makes sense to what is the actuality of the world, so that I'm never accused of breaking the rules or making up something later, you know, like that single line of dialogue fix where, you know, there was a truth back here, but it's inconvenient, so we're going to change it over here and just be like, oh yeah, that's because we
I just read a book. I was listening to a book on the way back, and the author I like, he's a good author, I won't mention it, but the book, he has a scene where he goes, there was a haze over the battlefield where you could barely see anything, but I saw everything. And you're kind of like,
oh, the haze!
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, fog of war, but maybe not, you know, it was, but we all do little things like that. It really is true.
But not so black.
Not so much. I mean, come on. Regarded, and he regarded him. And he regarded him. Yeah.
Oh,
but
that's a great inside joke. Don't tell anybody.
That's a good insight. Yeah, but it's, you know, in the Ways of Worlds, I did one in the Shadow War Chronicles. I did one where he gets off the ship, and the first thing he says is he catches the reader's attention by goes, every book I've ever read, they never tell you about the smell. And that's the first thing I did was describe the smell of the world, because it's a way to catch the reader.
I've written about smell.
Yeah, you have. But that was a way to catch the reader. It's something most people don't do. In any science fiction, they get off and they describe the wondrous view they have, or the creatures, or the people. They don't describe.
Oh no, that's one of my most effective vehicles is to get. Smell is such a powerful memory trigger. I wouldn't go. Yeah.
Smells like a giant fart.
Well, that was the first thing.
Have to have it.
It didn't smell like Earth. It didn't smell something he was used to. The smell alone was foreign to him getting off of it. Not just the world, but already he has no anchor to it. You know, we decide what's familiar and what's not, what's good and what's not by how it smells, it tastes, it looks. You describe one of the primary senses. It's how you anchor your reader to your world or your story. You start describing things that are tangible for them.
Dude,
you know, ways they can associate.
This is very powerful. I mean, that's like one of the first things that one will notice about occupying a space. Not unlike walking into a hotel room and having it smell like pot and pizza.
Yes, pot and pizza. Oh, wow. I'm hungry. I don't know why.
Seriously, though. I mean, like...
Oh my God, that smelled like suds. It smelled like somebody had a wake and bake in there. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh, it did.
You just never know what you're going to get. But yeah, that's the thing.
I know.
I mean, you're right. That sense is something that is so strongly tied to memory that we as humans associate, because it strongly attaches with memory, with experience. And so if you can conjure
powerfully react to it. Yeah.
That's right. If you can conjure that, oh, this is how you remember things strongly sort of thing for a reader, then that is going to slip them in to a more experiential read.
Yeah, I call it a sensory building block. When you're first introduced to something, you have sensory building blocks.
Yeah.
Sight, feel, touch, smell, taste. Things that associate. What did it taste like? Well, it tasted like old gym socks. I don't know what old gym socks taste like, but you get an idea. It evokes something powerful. What did it smell like? Dog farts. Well, you know what a dog fart smells like, so that's not real pleasant.
Ray's work is so wonderful.
Apparently everything I've got smells and tastes like shit. But the point being is you are associating this for the reader. You are giving them building blocks, grounding pieces they can use to associate something. One of the catches always is when you go back and you forget what your building block was and you say it's something else. All of a sudden you go back and it smells like flowers. The reader's going to go, what? No, it didn't. It smelled like dog farts.
Right. Why?
Because that was funny.
If you're going to break a rule, You better be able
You have
to
to have a
explain
reason.
that, and it better make sense, and it better not be one of those single line of dialogue fixes where you're like, you know, you kind of gloss over it, because every one of us can think of a movie, a TV show, a book that we've read that we can go, oh, that's not how it was, and you just tried to explain that shit away, and
but you have, as a
you.
writer, we have the tools to bring a reader in, to associate them with something they can understand, to ground them. So not only do you have descriptions and you have things like politics to deal with, but also the people work so often up here, they forget the little things they can do just to bring a reader in, just to introduce them.
You touched on honestly, the next thing I wanted to go into was all of the other elements of, you know, I mean, like we've touched on, you know, the whole psychic rule thing that I do, and then got preoccupied with the physical space. But there are things like socioeconomic dynamics and
religion, politics,
and social
infrastructure.
Yes, exactly. How finances work and whatnot. When you're talking about real world building within, you know, I mean, that's disparaging even to my genre to say real world building. But I mean, the ones of us who build the most intricate worlds tend to be people like you guys who write sci-fi and fantasy, because you can just throw everything out and create something completely new.
Yeah, but we don't have, to be fair, we don't have a lot of choice in the matter. You have DC. I've got Tralfamadore, where no one has ever been except Vonnegut. That kind of thing. I have to.
Vonnegut, that's awesome. Well, I've got Vicor, and I've got the different.
Yeah, I've got places that
Chronicles
they don't exist, and no one's ever been there. No one's ever going to go there, but my readers will. I have to tell them what that place looks like. What does it feel like? Ray's vibe. It can be planetary.
Exactly. The sensory building blocks, your vibe. But then you have rules, like Glacia was saying. You have rules. How would you enact rules? Well, one of the things you do for your world is they are an import-export world. They import underpants and to make a profit. That's what they do. So if you want to affect something in this world financially, you already have laid the groundwork for that. But that you wouldn't actually go, okay, we're going to go steal a case of Davies, you know, but you haven't set that up. If you set up something, if you structure a financial income for a world and you want to affect that world, money is power. You have created that vehicle. When you create these rules, it's important to stick to them, because nothing confuses a reader more than when you create a set of rules and then you ignore them. And I've seen books who do that.
No, that's you know what used to irritate me, and not when I was a kid because I wasn't smart enough or old enough to understand, but later on when I watched Star Trek shows, how often Roddenberry blew right past and got straight to the personalities and the metaphors of social injustice that he wanted to ram up everybody's ass. For example, when I have a planet, my heroes are going to some place. It's useful for the reader to understand it's not a cookie cutter benign place that doesn't have any personality. It could be an agro-moon where most of the people grow crops. Maybe it is a water heavy place, and we turn a bunch of that stuff, we crack it and turn it into breathable air for oxygen tankers to take away. Maybe it's a desolate, burning, hot shithole. Doesn't matter, except I have to tell them that world, so when my people get there, they already are feeling hot and stuffy. If it's a desert world, they're feeling wringing wet. If it's a jungle planet. Those are the details that set a stage and are really the door openers for behavior.
Biloxi Blues, he gets off the plane, he goes, this isn't just hot, this is Africa hot. You know, the first thing he gives you is that, you know, so you get a mental association of just how hot that is, you know, and
that's
it is
world
a great
building.
line.
You have to have it but you cannot. This is an important point. We've said it 15 times. I'm going to say it one more time because I'm tedious. You must have anchors, and that is why the world builds, and our rule establishing the borders that we set You cannot run outside of them unless, like Glacia said, you're doing it deliberately and you have lots of justification for it. It can't be a one-line fix.
It was
you have to pay
Roddenberry. Yeah, Roddenberry threw me for a loop. It was Star Trek. When they were talking in one of the episodes, one of the originals, they said, well, what do you do for money? And he says, we don't make money. We do this for the pursuit of mankind. And I automatically go, whoa, foul, hold on. How are you affording the starship? And who's affording the clothes? And how are you doing this? And my mind starts going off on 50 different directions about how this is not a good idea, you know. But that's because he threw something in, and at first it wasn't really backed up. It was a singular statement. They backed it up later, and he went and backfilled it in The Next Generation and some other places. But
yeah, he backfilled it.
Dude,
yeah.
I ignored the story. I was busy rabbit holing on how the hell they dealt with the whole money thing.
That's an excellent point. Is watch out for the backfill. Make sure you
backfill,
up front where it's important, and that's hard. I mean, like, it's hard to not do when you have complex worlds because there are things that operate outside of reality. The way all three of us write. There is a whole lot of information about the world that we create that is important for the reader to understand, and disseminating that information to them can be tedious or boring. And so that it's easy, I think, to accidentally fall into a position in which at some point or another you may have to backfill. And
because you forgot something, or you laid a rule that has to change, it doesn't make sense. Or you were
like, oh God, I'm a little exposition heavy. Like, I don't really want
a little exposition heavy. Yeah, I've done that.
Easy to do, man. It's easy to
introduce the throwaway character to talk about money. Yes, you know, I mean, John the banker shows up, you know, who gives you a lesson in socioeconomics.
There's really only so many times that you can do the throwaway expositional character thing before people start, you know, sort of seeing through that. And
then they become red shirts, and we know what's going to happen to the red shirt guy when the staccato violins show up. That guy's dead.
Back.
He's going to be dead in just a few minutes. He's got a red
you're
shirt
there with
on
the Enterprise.
Yeah,
you got the Enterprise, and then you got like another ship that's full of red shirts, and you're going, oh, well, they're screwed, you know.
We're about to
going into battle.
Some sort of
one of us might not make it. You know?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you know.
What
the captain's wearing a red shirt over there. You're like, oh, he's done. Yeah.
Yep. That guy's toast. But yeah, that becomes distracting in and of itself. You know, you have a character who comes in and just starts talking about shit. You know, again, I mean, using another throwaway character to talk about, you know, how the social construct works, or, you know, your economics or your religion is going to be something that a reader sees. Readers see patterns.
They don't have to be beaten over the head with them. The subtle and the cerebral approach that you can.
But there are things they don't see sometimes, or they do and they don't see it till later. There's two examples. One is a newer one, The Walking Dead. The lawns in The Walking Dead are always fucking cut. You know, you've got the end of the world and a zombie apocalypse, but some motherfucker is out there with a goddamn Toro mowing lawns, you know.
And nobody seems
to notice that, right? You know. But the other one was one of my favorites. When I was a kid, I even saw this. The A-Team. The old show, The A-Team. Here we have crack Delta Force soldiers who are now mercenaries for hire, but can't seem to hit a single goddamn thing. They are worse shots than stormtroopers. You know, literally, the entire show is they show up, they've got their M16s, they fire 17 clips and don't hit anybody. Nobody dies, nobody gets winged.
Oh, no, wait a minute. There's a reason for that. That's Solomon Sachs. Also, Saul Sachs was a big shot 60s
I know, Saul Sachs.
We have to fill this amount of time.
Nobody can die.
Exactly. You cannot be shooting these people until I'm ready to fill up this 3 minutes. And then they can die. They're also the expedience. And then
we got to go build we got to go take the big bulldozer and put a bunch of metal on it so we can pimp it out Mad Max style and bring it out. You know,
but on the
even as a 5-year-old, I'm like, something's not right. You know, they don't hit anything.
the lawn mode is problematic in a TV show. You, however, as an author, you have the ability to describe that for the very purpose. It might not be noticeable, but if you can stick one line in that says the overgrown landscape told of.
Well, you could, but there are obvious things.
Neglect, exactly. And you can kill that in the name of accuracy. You can't do that in a TV show. We can do it.
Sure.
The same thing for world buildings. I did that. I did snafus like that where I had a planet. It was a red planet it had swirling clouds, and I think I went 6 paragraphs later where it was purple and no clouds, and I didn't pick it up. I didn't see it. Somebody else saw it and went, "Hey, wait a minute, isn't that same planet?" And I went, "Oh yeah, well that's a problem, because but visual cues, the inconsistencies we create by not remembering or not grounding ourselves or following our own rules. So these are things that as authors we need to watch for, because like I couldn't see anything, but I saw everything. It's readers pick up and it bugs them. It bugs a reader. They will sit there and focus on that for the next 6 pages and miss the entire cool story you wrote.
You've corrupted them by that one moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can't leave it alone now. It's a pebble in their shoe, and it diminishes your ability in their eyes, whether you want to hear it or not. And now they're looking at you going, "Wow, really? Purple, red? What is it?"
Right? Make up your mind, asshole.
What happened? What happened to the planet? I know.
And you get critical. But world building, it's summary. It's physical, it's tangible, but it's not limited to that. Certainly isn't restricted. The feel and the vibe of a city, the places that a psychic can go that affect her, that the things that she sees, that's world building. Those are rules that Glacia she has to apply this stuff. She doesn't get away with it just because it's a psychic. It's not as though she could pick up the Empire State Building and balance it on its end. She has rules. And so Glacia's people have to do this. It's not tangible, but then again, it's not supposed to be. Still, consistency, you bet she has to hold on to that. There are things that she wouldn't dream of doing, because she will lose that and she'll lose the reader.
Well, and here's the thing, right? It's consistency, but it's also a certain amount of believability. We all write
authenticity.
Worlds, we all write worlds that require a reader to suspend their perception of reality. And so what we have to do a lot of times is to create sort of, definitely in my case, the incredible within the very real. If I can make the tangible real world real and immersive, and that ordinary thing be very much a character in and of itself, that in which these people can operate, and I can get my readers to accept that, then they've already accepted my words. And so they're going to be more likely to accept the crap that I tell them later that is totally outside of the realm of believability. I get to take a lot of liberty with the I've had more than one person describe it as just outside of the believable. And honestly, it's so far outside of believable, it's not even funny. But it seems acceptable to a rational human being, and they dive deep into that thing. But it's because everything that surrounds the unbelievable is so believable. I don't know if it's like that for you guys. I don't know. I think that's where the science,
something that's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
That's where the science comes in.
Science fiction.
Yep, correct. That's where the science
remember
comes
the
in.
old, what is the old adage? If you're going to tell a lie, try to keep it as close to the truth as possible. The same thing is true in a story. If you're telling something completely outlandish, the more you ground it. Exactly. The more you ground it in some realism, the easier it is to suspend disbelief for the reader. My problem with readers, though, and I'll bring this up real quick because this is an important point, is readers never behave themselves. I will give you an example. Tolkien, for a prime example, wrote wonderful books, little long if you read them, somewhat dry at times, But really, when he was writing the book, he came up with the Elvish language. It took him no time at all, and the elves speak Elvish. That's great. There are people who literally specialize in speaking Tolkien Elfish. I'm sure when he wrote the book, he did not consider that to be a thing. That was an augment to an existing story. That was a small thing that gave it that believability. Just like, speaking Klingon. But there are people who write entire books on how to speak Klingon.
Yep.
Readers don't behave themselves.
No. So if you're going to create something,
right.
Assume that somebody is going to latch onto that and dissect.
Yes.
You better be creating real
God,
fucking
I
sound,
know.
because goddamn it, if somebody latches on and starts picking the pieces apart,
it's gonna fall apart. Because let's face it, when we're writing something, we don't, we're not gonna focus on that. Go ahead.
You're a crazy person notebooks, and you write everything down, and you make sure that you understand the rules.
Yes, only crazy people do that, though.
That's already.
Why would you take notes? Oh my God, you're insane.
I just dropped my notebook.
Cognitive moment. Cognitive.
Yeah.
Did you use your cool pen to write the notes?
No.
Oh.
You had a pen sticking to the back of your finger a minute ago. That was not your cool pen?
No, this is not my cool pen.
That was not your cool pen.
No.
Nope. She's not using her cool pen. Not using her cool pen.
Because it's special.
Not using her cool pen. But yes. That's all I've got on the subject, though. That was a good one.
We're good.
That was a good one.
I'm glad we had. I don't think so. I think if we didn't do anything else, we amplified from way back at episode 4.
We augmented and we ranted
in her bit, and we did rant, but still.
Hold on, before we go, I do.
Same old. What is he doing?
Davo, yes, I do speak from experience when it comes to stuff like that. Mandy Michaud, yes, Glacia does look gorgeous today. You're very much correct.
Aww.
And then Davo, yes, when you make Dungeons and Dragons, it's always important to make sure it's accurate. I agree. Just talking about some of the comments people made, apparently,
Yeah, our episode's
You've
over
got
now,
a fan.
So we can go back and
I just am going back and looking at those. I wanted to recognize the comments. So thank you all.
There we go.
And that's it. Let's say bye-bye, Fache Book.
Bye, Fache Book.
Bye, Fache Book.
Bye, Fache Book.
Go.
We have stopped live, and I will stop recording.